Hello again, my name is Katy, and it's Saturday morning. It's absolutely lashing outside, so I thought, right, we'll bring you some more books. Now, much as I'd really love to have read all of these, sometimes I need a bit of help with the reviewing because I can't get through them all. So I've asked, David, Amy and Lauren. Now, Amy and Lauren are the girls who answer the phones at the moment and give you advice and do all the business for you. And of course, as you know, David, he's my partner here and does your deliveries. So they've all been reading and have given me their ideas and their reviews of some of these titles. So let's have a look at the ones that they've reviewed. Now this one, The Silence by Susan Allott, is set in Australia. It's reviewed by Lauren, and it's the story, well, I think that cover tells you quite a lot. It's the story that starts in 1997. A young girl, Isla, gets a phone call from her dad, and the upshot of the call is that he had been living in the 1960s with his wife, Louisa, beside another couple, Mandy and Steve. And there may be a murder, there is definitely a missing woman, and there's definitely some hassle about a baby. So this is what Lauren has to say about it. So she says, this is a surprising read. While it's centered around a woman's disappearance and potential murder, it's really a story about family, loyalty, and moral rights. The links to the stolen generation are confronting and uncomfortable to sit with, which seems to be the point and allows a deeper character understanding. The story was well paced and was great at exploring the ugliness in people as well as the drive to do the right thing. So I think that kind of should give you an idea of what we're to expect from this idea of rift, what people want. Look at that, that's an absolute stunner. And that comes from us from Borough Press. That's HarperCollins for us. Okay, the next one. This is Amy has reviewed this one, The Loudness of Unsaid Things by Hilda Hinton. This one comes from Hachette. Now, Amy really loved this one, so I'll give you her review. I mean, I regret not reading all of these, but I can't read them all, can I? So what she says, Amy said, here's your review. She says, definitely a beaut, this one, and guaranteed to make you feel. And I go, feel what? She said, that's just it, to feel. Story of a young girl learning to grow up in an unconventional home life, and as she struggles to uphold a relationship with her mother who's mentally ill, and a father that she doesn't really want to fail. Susie's eccentric imagination and kind of pragmatism, her perception of the world, is wrapped up in great detail, plotting out the natural patterns of life as she sees it. Hinton uses the individual lived experience to drive a more holistic exploration of mental illness. So we're getting a bigger picture here. The reader is left feeling nurtured by the kindness, empathy and compassion that spill out onto the pages. The child perspective finds similarity with The Choke by Laguna and The Curious Incident of the Dog. In the night time, while its warmth and tenderness reminds me strongly of Fable Parrott's novels. Such a beautiful story. Now that's a humdinger of a review from Amy. Sounds like a really, really nice one to get in touch with emotions and explore other people's emotions. Right, we'll whoosh through these. Now David's had a bit of fun here with this one. At least he had fun reading it. Look at that for a cover. All right, so it's called Enter the Aardvark by Jessica Anthony, and that comes from Doubleday, that's Penguin. David has a nose for quirk, right? He really likes a quirky book. And I think this was one of the books that he was like super annoying, saying this is so funny, this is so good, it's so sharp, it's so witty, it's really pithy. I said, well, who, you know, if you've liked who have you read that this would remind you of? And he said, well, a little bit like kind of that Joseph Heller feel, but like Patrick DeWitt as well, if you've read him, The Sisters Brothers. Sisters Brothers or The Brothers Sisters? The Sisters Brothers. French Exit. Those very sharp, pointy fun. It's about, well, it's about a senator in contemporary times who finds a stuffed aardvark that's been sent to him. Stuffed aardvark. And there's a timeline back in 1875, and the two storylines kind of mirror each other in a way. There are great resonances. He said it was an absolutely wonderful read from start to finish by Jessica Anthony. So she's had a bit of fun with that one, and you are guaranteed to have a lot of fun with it as well. Not a very, very long book, and I did read about 3 pages and found myself snorting. I was going to say, well, chuckling. Next one up, David read this one again. David the Delivery Man. Lionel Shriver. Now, a lot of us have read Shriver. We know what we're going to get. She does not disappoint with this one. She covers everything. It's called The Motion of the Body Through Space, and that's reflected in the book because it's what we do as humans, go through space and time. But it's also to do with sport, and I think Shriver has made some comments about personally that she has a kind of an intense interest in sport. We have centered around a couple who are in their 60s. She's always been running, and she now has an injured knee, and to her great surprise her husband decides he's going to run a marathon, and he has no sporting sort of background. She does cover everything without being sensationalist. She doesn't, you know, there's no big explosions, big bang booms. You get very attached to your characters, David says. And he says she makes the everyday fascinating and makes a bloody good character. It's very smart, funny, interesting, very timely, even though there's no pandemic. What she does is takes a scalpel to the human condition and effortlessly shows us what we're made of, even though we mightn't really wish we're like that. So I think we know what we're getting with Shriver. We know she's not going to ever let us down. It's really smart, funny, clever writing. That's an absolute gem. We will move on to one of my, well, I have read these ones, at least, well, I'll modify that. The Mercies. This is, yeah, historical fiction, right? So Kieran Millwood Hargrave has written, she has written for young adult, middle grade as well. This is definitely adult. It's an absolute stunner. It comes from Picador. That's Macmillan for us, Pan Macmillan. It is absolutely chilling. It's brilliant. Historical fiction in that vein of a bit Hannah Kent, Burial Rites. Bleak, 1960s Norway, 40 men drown from a tiny fishing village and the women have to take over. This is really badly perceived by the kind of that Christian, I think it was King Christian IV, who was really Lutheran, had decided that these women running around the place being bossy were really witches. So he brings in a commissioner to do witch hunts, to lead the trials. Based on the historical fact, there was a lensman who came over from Scotland after King James's demonology book. So we've got two strong women characters, one who comes from Bergen in sort of civilized town, and she's married off to this commissioner who's a strict Lutheran, so you can imagine we'll have a lot of dynamics, lots of tension in that marriage, and she's thrust into a world that's rude and unhostile, and meets Maren, a girl who comes from this fishing village who has donned the role of fisherwoman, and she has friendships with, well, her drowned brother's wife was Sami, which is an indigenous people from even further north, and lots of fascinating the build of tension and hysteria, how the witch trials actually, how they proceeded, how these two women find solace in each other, and how they try to beat the system, basically. Women have to keep doing that. Wonderful, wonderful read. Highly recommend that one. The next one, which, well, we all know her, Anne Tyler, well, at least I'm always presuming that, but if you don't, you should read her. It's a smaller one that's not going to terrify anybody. The Redhead by the Side of the Road. I love everything she writes. She sticks us in the same sort of neighbourhood, sort of familiar with her territory, and her, in this one, her main character, Mika, is a 44 kind kind of nerdy, kind of stuck in his own routine. He calls himself a tech hermit, and his life is the way he likes it. At first I thought we were going to be stuck with one of these OCD, and I should have trusted Anne Tyler more than that, because if she gives me a character who puts on accents while he's doing the hoovering, that's it, I'm in, I love it. She has an eye for those details that makes every character become not just real, but really beloved. This character, Micah, has got, it's the dynamics of his relationships. So a girlfriend called Cass, who he's not really committing to, she gets evicted because she's got a cat, really, honestly. And so you can sense that he's not sure what his obligation to her is. And a young fella, 18, turns up on his doorstep with the most unlikely name of Brink, who comes from that kind of entitled background, and Brink thinks that Micah might actually be his real dad, so we'll be looking at that. I'm not looking at my own notes, which is a bit, this is from Penguin Random House. I do think it's one of my faves. I always like everything she writes. I think it's human relationships, and she does those to perfection, so I would call that a wee gem. And my last little one that I'm just popping in because I can't resist it. I have read Louise Erdrich before. I have a tendency to have more than one book on the go. That's very surprising. And this is one of those ones that I just pick up once a day for about 4 or 5 pages. And when I first went for this one, I said, nah, am I interested in 1953 rural North Dakota and a night watchman in a jewel bearing factory? And I said, yeah, of course I'm interested in it. Have I got time for it? Yes, you know. And anyway, I picked up a couple of pages. Before I knew it, I was at about page 77. I was precisely at page 77. And I know I'm not going to be able to put this one down. It turns out it's based on the 1950s, when Congress wanted to officially pass a bill that would terminate 5 tribes. So it's Indigenous American. And it's got boxing, it's got spirits, it's got a ghost called Roderick, who I absolutely love. It shows how family and community are vital, how they're larger than we think they are. We have a young girl, Patrice, at the beginning of the story. She's Pixie, but she likes to be called Patrice. And she is working in this jewel bearing factory, but her sister has disappeared. And this wandering spirit, Roderick, who's of course part of the Indigenous way of going about things, is to consult the spirit guides to find out things that they need to know. And they have seen the Sister Vera in Minneapolis, so Patrice is going to go after her. It's also about the journey of Thomas, who's the night watchman in this factory, who is based on the real grandfather of Louise Erdrich, who fought for the rights of the Native American Indians. Wonderful characters. It kind of makes you go outside your own perception of the way life should be. I'm absolutely loving it. I can't say I finished it, but I know I'm going to, and I do think it's one you can pick up if you're interested in the history of Indigenous peoples outside of Australian Indigenous history. There you are. That's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed those, or enjoyed listening to me. A bit egotistic, but have a look at some of those books, and then you can buy them. All right, see you next time.